What up? It's your bro, Aaron. And if you're listening to this podcast right now, it is my guess and it is also my hope that you really want to live a big life. Like, there's so much out there for you to do, and there's so much on the inside that wants to come out, and you want to live a big, massive life. And I'm here to say that you can. But if we're being honest, if you and I were talking one-on-one and I pulled you aside and you kept it 100 with me, I guarantee you there's a part of you that struggles with perfectionism. Like, you need everything to be right, every I to be dotted, T to cross. And even when you're done, you're editing up a storm and you're making sure that everything looks perfect in your eyes. But what if I were to tell you that perfectionism, wanting everything to be quote unquote right, is what's keeping you away from living your big life? But hey, don't take it from me. Take it from Queen Bee. Because in this episode, I'm going to show you how Beyoncé taught us all that perfectionism is overrated. Coming up next on Done Not Perfect. Welcome to Done Not Perfect, a podcast, but more importantly, a safe space. A safe space for you to feel like living a big life is okay. But in order to do that, you have to be willing to create boldly and share fearlessly, whether that's in your career, your work, your relationships, whatever it is, your health and wellness. You have to be able to create boldly and share fearlessly. And this is the space to learn how to do that and break free from the strongholds and the obstacles that have been keeping us stuck for way too long. So if you're new here, I want to say welcome to Club 51. You're probably like, what the hell is Club 51? I'm going to share with you what it means. So a few years ago, I was speaking at a conference with my good friend, Elise Murphy, and she said something and it has stuck with me for the last 5 years. And she said, you're never going to be 100% ready, but you will always be ready enough. And that has connected with me and resonated with me in such a massive way. And so when I think of being ready enough and not waiting for 100%, the number that came to mind was 51. That you just have to be 1% over halfway to go on your way. So this community is called Club 51. So if you're here for the first time, welcome to Club 51. All are welcome. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe and follow to the podcast, rate us and review us. That helps us out more than you know, because that's going to allow this podcast to be shared to people that don't know who we are, but we have exactly what they need. And at the end of this episode, if anyone comes to mind that you're like, yo, you gotta listen to this, share it with them. The more, the merrier. So in this episode, we're talking about perfectionism. We're talking about why it is not good to want to be perfect, but also why it's impossible to be perfect. Like, the only person that's perfect is God, and you and I ain't him. But the cool thing about this episode and why I'm very excited to do this one is I'm going to use Beyoncé, Queen Bee, as a guide through all of this. Now, I want to preface this by saying, before the hive comes at your boy, I am not a Beyoncé expert. Okay, I don't know the ins and outs of her entire life. But what I want to talk about today is I really want to highlight the last 10 to 12 years of her career, because I think she did something very important around 2013 that, in my eyes, in my personal estimation, changed the entire trajectory of her career for the better. And I'm going to tie that into how you can do that too in your own way and shatter perfectionism for good and live the big life of your dreams. Okay. So first, let's talk about perfectionism. What is perfectionism? Well, it's self-explanatory. It's the idea that you want everything to be perfect in every way. So look at a particular thing in your life right now where there is an obscene amount of energy into it being perfect. whether it's your relationship, maybe it's work, maybe it's your fitness, maybe, it's your business, maybe it's your music, maybe it's your podcast, maybe it's whatever it is, you are so focused on everything being just right that you're hesitant to move forward until something is done as perfectly as it can be done. Now, I also want to preface by saying there's nothing wrong with wanting things to be great and to look good and to work hard and to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to is you're chasing this idea of perfection that really only exists in your own mind because nobody's ever going to be perfect. There is not one thing that is on this planet that is perfect, right? Because at the end of the day, no matter how good something is, there's still someone out there that doesn't like it. So what is viewed as good or great or perfect is only the eyes of the beholder, right? Like Thriller is considered the greatest album of all time, or one of the. But there are people that are like, Thriller's not even Michael Jackson's best album, right? So like perfection is really a fixation and an idea in your mind that you've created based on what you think perfect is. The problem with that is if you're not careful, you can slip into this pattern of constantly delaying your progress because you're waiting for everything to be just right. Now, I can give you a personal example of perfection. When I first started the podcast almost a year ago, there were so many times at the beginning stages where I would do an episode over and over and over again because I didn't like the way my voice sounded. Maybe I was stammering over my words. Maybe I thought in my mind I was speaking too fast. I redid this, I redid that. I'm editing, I'm taking things out, I'm writing things. Like I was so over the top with my criticism of myself that it was stalling me from actually putting an episode out. And I just want to encourage you, if you're someone right now listening to this, and when you're looking at perfectionism in an area of your life where you suffer in it the most, if it's something that you're beginning, so let's say, for an example, you want to start a podcast, right? But input that thing for you here. But let's just say in this particular case, someone wants to start a podcast. No matter how perfect your podcast is, no matter how incredible your first episode may be in your eyes, in the grand scheme of the podcast in totality, right? Let's say you do 100 episodes. Your first episode is going to be your worst. So no matter how much effort you put into the start of something, and I'm not saying don't do your research, don't do your due diligence, don't take your time, don't put your best foot forward. But remember, the first is always going to be, or usually is going to be your worst because you don't know what you're doing. You're starting, you're embarking, you're trying something new. So striking for perfection in something that you have no expertise in is setting yourself up for failure. And that's what we're talking about. So I'm really talking about the person that is starting something, or maybe even you're in your journey. Maybe you've accomplished, maybe you are successful in what you do, but there's another level that you can reach if you stop being so damn perfect, right? And this is where Beyoncé comes in for me. Again, I am not a Beyoncé expert. I do not, if a Beyoncé documentary comes out, they are not going to reach out to me to like make sure the timelines are right, okay? This is my personal opinion of my relationship with Beyoncé musically and art from an artistry standpoint, but some things that I've noticed when it comes to perfection. So when Beyoncé first became on my radar, right? She was in Destiny's Child. So we're talking mid to late 90s is when she really became on my radar, right? So you're watching her in this group And off rip, you can just tell who the one is, right? It's like with NSYNC, we knew that Timberlake was the one. When you look at the Jackson 5, we all know MJ's like there's the one. I remember, watching pro wrestling, and when The Rock was in this group called the Nation of Domination before he became The Rock, you just can tell when someone just has it, right? Like there's something about them that you just can't teach. They grab the camera in a way where they may not even be saying anything, but you're just drawn to them. And Beyonce had that, right? So when you fast forward, she does Dangerously in Love in 2003, right? Beehive, it was 03, right? She does Dangerously in Love in 2003. And then from there, we're off to the races. So we knew how talented she was in the group. But once she does Dangerously in Love, I mean, she just sets the world on fire, right? So she does Dangerously in Love in 03. She does B-Day in 06. And then I Am Sasha Fierce in 08. And then she does an album called 4 in 2011, okay? Now, fast forward, we're in 2013. And this is where the meat and potatoes of this message is. In 2013, she does something very unique. She drops an album out of nowhere. Okay, I remember where I was. I was in the basement, right? I was at my parents' house in the basement, and I got a message that Beyonce just dropped an album. I was like, what? Now, at the time, you got to remember, this has never been done before. Like, no artist just drops an album with no promo. And she dropped the Beyonce album in 2013. And the album was incredible. Incredible. Now, as a Beyonce fan of her talent, the one thing, because as a consumer for me, I'm a lyricist. I love storytelling. I love lyrics, right? The one thing about Beyonce, if I could be critical of her from back in the day, is when you look beyond the vocal talent, the dancing ability, her putting on incredible performances. She's a once in a generational talent, once in a lifetime talent. The one thing up until 2013 that I did not see for me, I didn't know who she was as a person. So it was hard for me to connect to her music beyond the talent. And when she does the Beyonce album in 2013, it was the most raw, personal, authentic album that I've heard from her in her entire career. So at this point, she's been solo for 10 years. And out of that entire decade, for me, this was the first time I was like, oh, I'm getting an inside look a little bit of who Beyonce is as a person, not as an artist, but as a human being. And then you fast forward 3 years after that, there's Lemonade, which is widely considered as her greatest piece of work today, right? The most vulnerable, open, transparent album that she's ever put out. And the fact that that didn't win, album of the year, the Grammys, is ridiculous. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day. So she does Lemonade, right? And then 6 years later, in 2022, she does the Renaissance album, which is an album that sounds completely different than she's ever done. Different sound, different music, different vibe. She does that, right? Sets the world on fire again. And then 2 years later, she does Renaissance 2, Cowboy Carter, and she does a country album. And it's like, what is going on? Like, what can't she do? And this Cowboy Carter album, which is a phenomenal album, she wins Best Country Album and her first ever Best Album Grammy from an album with a body of work and a genre of music that you would never associate her with. Like, she wins her Best Album in terms of Grammy-wise for a country album. And I'm thinking to myself, how is this possible? This woman has made so many hits. She's made some of the biggest records of all time, biggest ballads of all time, biggest pop records, R&B records, all of it. And she wins for country. And then I started thinking to myself like, oh, I get it. The reason why, for me, the second half of her career from 2013 to now is connecting more, it seems, than the first half of her career is because she's showing us in real time, the more you show your scars, the more open and transparent and vulnerable you are, the more you try things, the more you step out of your normality and walk into a space that you have seemingly so to me and to a lot of us. What is she doing? Like, country, what? What does that even mean? And she says, no, bump this. I got something to say. And I'm going to do it in a way that I've never done it before, in a way that you've never seen me before. And what that does is that it lets the consumer, it lets my guard down and listen to what she has to say. And when I look at the first half of her career from 2013 to 2011, what I saw was an artist that was trying to be perfect. In her interviews, in her performances, everything was about, I'm going to give you the greatest performance you've ever seen. I'm going to make the most perfect song you've ever heard. Now it's like, I'm going to prioritize being transparent, open, authentic, and real first. Like, let that be the centerpiece of everything. And then I'm going to piece it with fantastic music. Right? So it's like, she got the dopest furniture first. And then she started painting the walls, adding the TV and all the other stuff to make the room look nice. But she prioritized the furniture, the substance first. And so when I'm thinking about her career, I'm just like, yo, once she stopped trying to be perfect in my eyes, and she really leaned into being more authentic and real and letting you in behind the scenes and dropping, the corporate and just like swearing more and being more raw and authentic and showing her love for her husband and showing her as a mother and showing her scars and her vulnerability, that's when her career went to a whole nother level. And so what does it have to do with you? It has everything to do with you. You're so busy trying to be perfect and trying to achieve something that no one can do. Like, your work, like your strive for perfectionism can create greatness. But man, when you're prioritizing the substance and the realness and the authenticity and the rawness and showing your vulnerability and your scars and your weaknesses, when you're letting people into your story, that's how you create connection. And I think with Beyoncé, we loved her from 2003 to 2013 because we were just marvelizing, I don't even know if that's a word, but it is now, her talent and her ability. But from 2013 to now, like, I feel like we feel more connected to her than we ever have. And it's because she's let us in. I feel like Kobe Bryant did the same thing. I feel like from 2007 until his untimely passing, he really let us in to Kobe Bryant, where he wasn't trying to be perfect. He wasn't trying to sound right and to do it right. He was like, nah, I'm just going to lean in and let y'all into me. And I think that was one of the things about his death that really hurt me, was I felt like we were about to experience something even greater than his basketball career, because now we started to see who Kobe Bryant actually was as a man. And so when you're looking at what you're going through or what you're trying to be perfect in, no one really wants to see the perfect you. We want to see the best version of you. We want to see a polished version of you. We want to see a version of you that takes themselves seriously and takes their art seriously and their career seriously. But we don't want to see the perfect version of you. We want to see some jankiness. Like, we want to see, like, yeah, she did flub her words. Yeah, she did misspell that. Yeah, she just woke up. I woke up like this. He's out here working out. He didn't wait until he lost the weight. He started filming himself when he was a little overweight. Like, people don't want the perfect version of you because the perfect version of you is not relatable. Like if you want people to see how great you are at what you do is one thing, but if you want to connect with people, the connection is in your brokenness. And that's why I think the Lemonade album just like changed the game for Beyoncé, was because her brokenness allowed people to feel like they could relate to her. Because when you're so talented and gifted and skilled as she is, a lot of what she can do is not relatable to the average person. But when she's showing her scars and when she's letting her guard down and she's letting you into her most intimate pain, that is what connects and translate to the consumer. And that's how you build community. That's how you build a following. That's how you build people that are going to wait in droves and pay ungodly amounts of money to watch you perform, not because they want to see your talent, but they want to see their friend. They want to see their sister. They want to see their homie because you know their story. And in a weird way, you feel like she knows yours. And so if you're listening to this right now and you're struggling with perfectionism, I want to submit to you this. Like, how many people are you disconnecting yourself from because you're striving for something that doesn't even exist? People want to see the real you. They want to see your scars. Now, you don't have to share everything. You don't have to tell them everything, but give them something. Post the video that's not edited properly. Post the blog post with words spelled incorrectly. Post the video of you not having your hair done or, not dressed the best and no makeup. And maybe, you do need to lose a few pounds in your eyes, but don't wait until you lose a few pounds before you start showing people. Like, show people your pain, show people your insecurities, let people in. Because I'm going to tell you this, the more you let people in, one of the things that's going to happen that's so powerful is you get to take your power back. When you own your imperfections, that's your superpower. It's like in 8 Mile, right? The last scene where Eminem is battle rapping Papa Doc, and Papa Doc is like, let that go first. And then M starts rapping. And then what he did, and I call this the 8 Mile theory, his entire battle rap was him owning all of his flaws. All of the things that Papa Doc could have used in the battle rap, Eminem, B Rabbit, his character said it first. And when he said it first, 1, he took his power back. 2, he connected with the crowd. And 3, he diffused anything that Papa Doc could have used against him. Everything. And so what happened? Papa Doc quit because he had nothing to say. And so what Beyoncé has showed me in this last 10 to 12 years of her career is that, yes, work your ass off. Yes, be the best that you can be. Yes, keep learning. Yes, keep growing. Yes, master your craft. But man, pair that with true authenticity, realness, and rawness. Stop trying to be as polished and as perfect as you can, but be as good as you can be, but share your imperfections. Share your flaws, share your scars, share your shortcomings, share that. That's when you connect with people. That's when you can relate to people. That's how you have great relationships, is you let people see what your pain is. The more open you are in your intimate relationships, the more the relationships can grow. The more open you are in your friendships, the more the friendships can grow. The more open you are as a brand, the stronger your brand gets because the people feel like they can relate to you. They can connect to you. They're not just talking to a brand, they feel connected to a person. So I want to give you a few things that you can do right now that you can stop the perfectionism. Because I'm telling you, it may sound good, right? It's like, what's the old saying? Practice makes perfect. You can never be perfect. Practice makes permanent. When you practice over and over and over again, it creates permanent habits, not perfection. but it creates permanent actions, permanent behaviors, permanent disciplines that leads to you having the best version of your skill set. Okay? So I'm going to give you a few things that you can do right now to end perfectionism if you find yourself in that space. The first thing is I want you to ask yourself this question. Why do I feel the need to be perfect in this space? I want you to ask yourself this question. Why do I feel the need to be perfect? What are you trying to protect? Are you wanting people to see you in a certain light? Do you want people to think something about you? Are you trying to change the perception of you? Are you trying to keep a perception of you? Why do you feel the need to be perfect? Like, what is it about the idea of you that's so important to you? You know, I can tell you firsthand, when I first started speaking about 5 years ago publicly, the main thought that I had in my mind was, what are people going to think about me? You know what I mean? Because I'm speaking in front of thousands of people and they're all looking at me. You know what I mean? And so naturally, the thought is, I need to make everyone like me. I need to have all my words perfect. I need to have everything I'm going to say memorized so it flows out perfect. But what I found out is like, man, the more I was trying to sound a certain way, the more I was cutting off my gift. The more I was cutting off my ability to connect because I was prioritizing how I sounded, right? Versus connection. Because here's the thing. Everyone that sees me speak ain't gonna like what I say. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. My job is not to sound a certain way so everyone can like me and think I'm the greatest. My job is just to be me. And I can only be me the way that I can be me because there's no one on the planet that can be me. So the more that I stop trying to be perfect and trust my ability and my skill set and my practice, my repetition, and how it comes out with God's help is how it comes out. But I can tell you this, the more that I've leaned into my story and my background and my authenticity and my shortcomings and, you know, my fears and my transgressions, the more I've connected. And also too, the more free I've gotten in my creativity because I don't prioritize the aesthetic anymore. This is, what am I trying to say here? Who is this for? Forget about how it's packaged. We could think about that later. But the most important thing is, what am I saying? And who is this for? What place is this coming from? Right? So ask yourself this question. Why do you feel the need to be perfect? And once you answer this question, I want you to do this thing first. I want you to start to do things in this area that you're imperfect in, right? So let's say, for an example, you want to create a podcast. I want you to make an episode and just record it with no edits. I don't care if you mess up. I don't care if you mess up the intro. I don't care if you mess up your words, if you fumble, if you stammer, if there's pauses, if there's breaks. I want you to record it all the way through. If you're recording a video for Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, I want you to record it in one take. And whatever happens, happens. And I want you to post it. And here's why. You have to see that people don't care. But also too, when you post your imperfections and your mess ups and you get it out there, you get it out. That's why, like in stand-up comedy, comedians, you'll hear them say this, I'm chasing the bomb. And bombing means you just didn't do well that night, people not feeling it. Now, of course, you don't want to bomb every night, but you also want to get the bombing out of your system. So once you perform and people don't like it, you got it out of your system. So now it's like, okay, people booed or people didn't like it. People walked out. I'm still alive. I'm still intact. Nothing happened to me. So you take the power away from the bombing, right? So it's not something that you're worried about. What if they don't like it? Like, I got to make sure I say it this way so they'll all laugh. It's like, no, get that out of your head. So by posting or sharing or doing the thing in an imperfect way, you are neutralizing your mind from sabotaging itself, saying that it's not ready yet. When I rebranded the podcast to Done Not Perfect, I kept all the episodes from the previous pod on there because I want you to see that look where I started. Like, you need to see that. And I need to see that. So I would do you a disservice if I erased all the episodes and just started from scratch. So you can go all the way to the beginning, to the very first episode of the Third Quarter podcast, and listen to it and compare it to now. There's going to be a difference, right? So share, post, write, do the thing imperfectly. Do not give your brain a chance to catch up and start overthinking. Beat it to the punch. Okay. And the second thing I want you to do is this. I want you to really write down why you want to do what you do. Because one of the things I have found in my own life and some of the clients that I've coached is this. A lot of people that struggle with perfectionism because they're only focused and concerned about themselves. You are created and designed for service. Your art, your creativity, your message, your business is supposed to serve God, others, and then you. And so when you're trying to be perfect, odds are it's not because you want it to look right or to sound right or to be the best that it can. It's because you're thinking about you and how it makes you look. So your perfectionism is not even for the consumer. It's for how the consumer views you. So you got to check yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? Are you doing it so you look good? Because if that's the truth, then you are always going to struggle with perfectionism. But if you understand that this is not about you and this is not for you, that this is for the service of others, you are instantly over time going to start to care less about being perfect because it's about getting your message out there, not how your message looks. Get it out. Some of the content that I've done with the least amount of edits and the least amount of thought went the furthest. My first viral video on TikTok was a prayer about anxiety. It was August of 2020. I walked out of my car and I felt this calling to do a prayer about anxiety. And I did it in one take. I had no ring light. It was like 8:00 at night. I had my business phone, turned it over to the flashlight, and I recorded with my personal phone, and I did it and I posted it. That video did 1 million views in 3 days. And at that time, I was only on TikTok for a month. And ever since then, I was getting 1,200 to 1,500 new followers a day from that video. It did 50,000 views in an hour. Right? Tina Turner said, "What's Love Got to Do with It" was her least favorite song on the album. She did not want that to be a single. It's the song she's most known for. It became a movie. It got Oscar nominations. So sometimes the thing that you're afraid to do, or the thing that's the least perfect in your eyes, is the thing that breaks through, is the thing that connects more. So, why are you doing this? Who are you doing it for? Because if you focus on others in service first, you are going to prioritize your message and the mess of it rather than how perfect it looks. And the last thing is this. Always remember that you are not going to be for everyone. So stop doing things for everyone to like you, because no matter how perfect you are, how much you show up, how good you look, how fit you are, there's going to be someone that still doesn't mess with you. There's going to be someone that still doesn't get it. There's going to be someone that still doesn't like your music. There's going to be someone that still doesn't like your podcast or your videos or your face or your body or your voice or your comedy or the way you parent. Someone's always going to have an issue with you. So trying to be perfect in a world where people are going to find a way to not like you makes no sense and only brings you more heartache and pain. I would argue, to bring it back to Beyoncé, that her last 4 albums, Beyoncé, Lemonade, Renaissance, and Cowboy Carter, are probably, critically, her best 4 albums she's ever made. Now, they may not be your favorite. Maybe they are. But I guarantee you, if you do a consensus of what is her most critically acclaimed albums in terms of just across the board, I'm willing to bet that the back half of her career ranks higher than the first half of her career. And it's not that she got more talented. It wasn't that, her performance got bigger. It wasn't that she got new vocal cords or new background dancers. Maybe she did. I have no idea. But I'm willing to bet that the reason why the second half of her career has resonated at a much deeper level is because she prioritized substance, her story, her flaws, her shortcomings, her pain, her agony, her struggles, the things that she has no reason and no right to share. And she did. And it's because of that, it's because of her imperfections that it allowed her to connect with the audience, including myself, on a deeper level. I cared so much that she won the Grammy for Cowboy Carter. And you can hear it in her voice that it's personal because she's putting herself out there. You have something on the inside of you that is destined for greatness, my friend, but you are trying way too hard to be liked, and you are trying way too hard to be perfect, and both of them are paths to nowhere. So don't take it from me. Take it from Queen Bee. She showed you the way. You can be super successful trying to be perfect. But damn, you can be so fulfilled when you let people into your imperfections. And when you let people into your imperfections, that's what builds connection. That's purpose. That's allowing God to use you to help heal others. And in return, you get healed yourself. Now, if you listen to this episode and someone came to mind like, yo, you got to listen to this episode. He talking about Beyonce. He talking about Queen Bee. He talking about perfectionism. He blended it all together. If there's someone that came to mind that could use this, man, it would mean the world to me if you would share it. It would mean the world to me. And I bet you they'll be grateful that you did. Also, too, if you haven't written a review, rated us, and followed the podcast, please do so, man. It helps us out more than you know. Listen, this is a safe space. This podcast is a safe space. This is a space for you to create boldly, to build the confidence to create boldly and to share fearlessly. Because, man, you're destined for greatness. And I just hope that I've added something to you that sparks something on the inside of you to do that. All right. I love you so much. Be safe, be blessed. And thank you for listening to Done, Not Perfect. Peace.